Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for all things Duke Blue Devils athletics. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. We thank you today, as well as every day, for checking us out and listening to our show to stay in touch with everything going on with Duke Blue Devils athletics. Duke basketball, after a win over Virginia Tech on Saturday, now 20-1 on the season, 9-0 in conference play. Blue Devils remained at number 4 in the AP poll behind Arizona, Michigan, and UConn. But Blue Devils did move to number 1 in the net. Duke is now 9-1 in quadrant 1, 13-1 across the first two quadrants, 10-0 at home, and 7-0 on the road. Blue Devils surging, no signs of slowing down, has now won 6 of its last 7 games by double-digit points and 3 of its last 4 games by over 20 points. Duke looks by far and away the best team in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and it's not even close. Blue Devils will have 5 remaining Quadrant 1 games on its current schedule. 4 of those come in conference play. One of those will be against Michigan, number 2 Michigan, on February 21st at Capital One Arena. Duke tied for the most Quadrant 1 wins in the entire country with Arizona as we stand with these current net rankings. Again, the net rankings change very, very often and very, very quickly, so that can all change. As we currently stand, Duke is 9-1 in Quadrant 1 games. Next up for the Blue Devils is the opposite of a Quadrant 1 game, well, almost the opposite. Tuesday, February 3rd, Duke will take on Boston College at home. Boston College, one of the weakest teams in the ACC and one of the weakest power conference teams altogether. Eagles are 9-12 on the season, 2-6 in conference play. Just one of those teams at the very bottom of the power conferences, and just really has been a season to forget altogether. Boston College currently 143 at KenPom. That is the second lowest ranking of any power conference team. 153 in the net, also the second lowest of any power conference team. The only power conference team lower than BC in those metrics is Rutgers out of the Big Ten. Boston College is 0-4 in Quadrant 1. They're 1-7 in Quadrant 2. Again, a game that, just probably won't bring too excitement for a Blue Devil squad. That's the 4th best team in the country according to the AP poll and has won 9 straight games with minimal issues. Boston College has lost 2 straight to Notre Dame and Virginia. Interestingly, held halftime leads in both of those ball games. But again, one of the weaker teams in the conference. One of the worst offenses in all of college basketball, according to KenPom. Boston College rated 274th at KenPom in adjusted offensive efficiency, 52nd in defense, actually. But it's a Boston College team that just hasn't done much. Losses to Florida Atlantic, Central Connecticut, Davidson, Tulane, Massachusetts, and then obviously has gotten routed more often than not through league play. If you've listened to our past few shows, we've talked about what's been working for this Duke team inside the paint defensively. Cameron Boozer is the best player in the country and will still be the front runner for National Player of the Year. This game has the potential to really, really, really be a big tally for Boozer against a fairly small Boston College team. A couple players of note, they've only got 2 players averaging double-digit in scoring. Leading scorer is sophomore Fred Payne, averaging 15.2 points per game. His 3rd season with the program, redshirted one of those years. 15.2 points per game to go along with just under 4 rebounds and 3 assists on 41.4% shooting from the field. Lone other leading scorer for the Eagles is Donald Hand, redshirt junior. Hand has been with the program for 4 years as well, 14.4 points for him to go along with 5.1 rebounds. This will probably be a game that ends a lot quicker than the 40 minutes will account for. Again, this is a Boston College team that isn't just one of the worst offenses in the ACC. It's one of the worst offenses in all of college basketball. Eagles are currently 329th at KenPom in effective field goal percentage at 46.8%, 344th in three-point shooting percentage, 277th in two-point shooting percentage. Everything on the offensive side of the ball is not what you want to see. Interestingly, their defensive metrics are actually very good, at least according to KenPom. According to KenPom, they're 23rd in three-point defense, 47th in 2-point defense, 12.8 or 43rd in block percentage, and 19th nationally in effective field goal percentage. But don't want to overthink this. If you're a Duke fan, this is a game that I don't think we have to talk about too much. I think this is it's a quadrant 3 opportunity for Duke. So obviously a loss would be absolutely detrimental for the Blue Devils' case for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, but I don't think it's fair to assume in any way that Duke is going to have any problems in this one. Again, Blue Devils are rolling with 9 straight victories and look like by far and away the best team in the ACC. What is of relevance for the date against Boston College is you can treat it as a bit of a tune-up game for the first edition of the rivalry across town between Duke and North Carolina. That will happen on February 7th, Saturday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, the first edition of the rivalry. Tar Heels 17-4, 5-3 in ACC action, have won 3 in a row. That includes wins over Notre Dame, Virginia on the road, and Georgia Tech. North Carolina has dealt with some pretty severe defensive issues over the last few weeks. Not necessarily figured that out, but man, that freshman Caleb Wilson is really, 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 really good, to put it simply. It kind of feels like he's right now the projected number 4 overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft behind Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, and Cameron Boozer. But it feels like in any other year, he would be the number 1 pick in the draft and at least top 2. He's an extremely high-level athlete, a double-double machine on both sides of the floor, can block shots, can score in a ton of different ways. In the win over Virginia, went for 20 points to go along with 4 rebounds and 2 assists. A fantastic freshman. But at least considering the past few seasons, this feels like a rivalry between Duke and North Carolina that's bringing the best pure product than it has in at least the last 2 seasons. Duke's has handled that rivalry fairly easily. North Carolina made the tournament last season as one of the last teams in. Did they deserve it? Probably not, based on their resume. It was an extremely disappointing season for the Tar Heels relative to where they were expected to be. Still made the tournament, were around a 64 exit, won their first 4 game, then were knocked out by Ole Miss. I don't think they should have made the tournament at all to begin with. That is a completely unbiased perspective, just based on the resume. They were not a tournament team. They are a tournament team this season. Tar Heels moved up in the AP poll this week after their 3 straight victories and are starting to look like potentially the second best team in the ACC. Tar Heels up to number 14 in the Associated Press poll. And they've got a prolific offense. It's just the problem is their guard play isn't very consistent. Seth Trimble has been a really good player. And Derek Dixon is this young piece that the Tar Heels have who really wasn't expected to do much coming into the season, wasn't really a known prospect. But he's come out and has really shown like he's got some potential at times. Hasn't really shown it, very consistently. Has been a major part of their rotation, but feels like a solid piece going down the road. Again, the front court of Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar for UNC will pose problems for Duke. One of the reasons Duke is so dominant is because it gets into the paint with intent, and it's bigger than most teams in the country. UNC is one of the few teams with a front court good enough to match that. Henry Vasar has been fantastic after spending 2 years at Arizona and heading over to UNC. And as we mentioned, the 5-star freshman Wilson is one of the best big men in the entire country. That duo might be the best front court duo in the entire country. The top 2 front court duos in the entire country could very well be Duke and UNC with Caleb Wilson and Vasar, and then Cameron Boozer and either Pat Gungba or Malik Brown, whoever you want to put in there. Malik Brown and Cameron Boozer both named to the Naismith Defensive Player of the Year midseason watch list. So again, that's kind of where we're going here. Don't really need to talk too extensively, I don't think, on Duke's date with BC on Tuesday night. That should be a fairly lopsided victory for the Blue Devils, who should improve to 21-1 and 10-0 in conference play heading in to its first matchup of the year against North Carolina. According to the latest ESPN bracketology update, which was updated on January 31st, 8 ACC teams projected in the 68-team field. Duke leads off as a 1 seed, the only top 4 seed out of the ACC. Virginia follows the Blue Devils as a 5 seed. Louisville, Clemson, and North Carolina as 6 seeds. SMU, a 7 seed. NC State, an 8 seed. And Miami, a projected 10 seed. Virginia Tech fell from one of the last 4 teams in to the first team out following a home loss to the Blue Devils over the weekend. 72-58 victory for Duke. Outscored Virginia Tech 10-2 over the last 6 minutes to take the victory. That's going to do it for us here at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. Once again, we thank you guys so much for joining in and listening to our show every single day to get your latest on Duke Blue Devils athletics. Make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke every single day to get your latest scoop on the Duke Blue Devils. Once again, my name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. I'll see you tomorrow.